Hello everyone, I'm Eileen, and today we are diving into the fascinating world of assessment. We will explore its role in enhancing language education, specifically through the concept of assessment of learning, for learning, and us learning. There are four videos in this series of assessment introduction. In each video, we talk about the purposes of assessment, key features, and the classroom applications. As for the first introduction video, we also present some theoretical underpinnings and how each assessment is associated with the learning theory. Now let's begin with this first introduction video. In this video, we will talk about the purposes of assessment, the roles of the teacher in assessment, how the learning theories are aligned with the assessment approaches, and the modern view of assessment. In this slide, we are exploring the key purposes of assessment, why we assess, and how it connects teaching and learning. First, assessment is used to evaluate whether students have achieved the intended learning objectives. By evaluating, we ensure educational goals are met, and the success is clearly defined. Second, assessment is used to teach. During the teaching process, a teacher constantly provides feedback, not only to students, but also to teachers, parents, and other stakeholders, helping everyone understanding progress and needs. Third, we assess to learn. Assessment helps to guide learning by offering scaffolds and strategies to optimize teaching and support student growth. In short, assessment is not just about measuring, it's about evaluating, giving feedback, and guiding learning forward. Next, we explore the evolving roles of language teachers in the assessment context. Here we see a table introduced by Earl Study, published in 2003. It's highlighting teachers' different roles and goals. First, the teacher serves as a mentor to provide feedback and support in the student's learning process. Then, a teacher is also a guide to the student through the work at hand. She is an accountant to record students' progress and achievement as well. Then, as a reporter, a teacher reports students' results to all stakeholders. Last, as a program director, a teacher makes judgments and revisions to his/her teaching. As we progress further into the 21st century, the role the roles of modern language teacher continue to evolve. Firstly, let's look at teachers as facilitators. They create an environment where they will be able to observe their students' learning. Next, after each formal or informal assessment, teachers serve as scaffold providers, and they support students by breaking down complex information into manageable steps. This approach helps optimize learning. Additionally, teachers are collaborators. They work alongside students, giving them feedback and guiding them in their journey. This collaboration fosters a rich learning experience. Finally, teachers act as motivators or prompters, encouraging students to push their boundaries and explore new language territories. Together, these roles exemplify the dynamic and the multifaceted nature of language teaching and assessment today. Now let's move on to the introduction of the theoretical underpinnings of assessment, including behaviorism, constructivism, and metacognitivism. Behaviorism emphasizes observable outcomes and the reinforcement, seeing learning as behavior shaped by conditioning and repetition. This aligns with assessment of learning, ALL, which focuses on measurable results such as tests and grades to show mastery in certain content or skills. They both prioritize external evidence of learning. In short, while behaviorism uses reinforcement to shape behavior during instruction, LL captures final performance to confirm learning objectives are achieved. Then constructivism, on the other hand, focuses on learners constructing their own understanding and knowledge through experiences. This aligns with assessment for learning, AFL, which emphasizes ongoing feedback and reflection to guide learners in improving and deepening their knowledge during the learning process. Lastly, metacognitivism involves thinking about one's own thinking. It encourages students to be aware of their learning processes. This aligns with assessment as learning, AAL, where students monitor, reflect, and regulate their own progress, using self assessment to take greater responsibility for their learning. And on this slide, we see how three assessment approaches align with different assessment purposes. First, assessment of learning focuses on learning outcomes. It's mainly summative, used at the end of instruction to evaluate what students have achieved, such as through unit tests or final exams. Second, assessment for learning emphasizes the learning process. It is formative in nature, supporting ongoing improvement by providing feedback that helps learners progress while they are still learning. Third, assessment of learning highlights learning reflections. This is also formative, encouraging students to monitor and reflect on their own thinking so they can take responsibility for their learning growth. In short, assessment of learning check what has been learned, while assessment for and as learning guide and support continuous learning. And here on this slide, I'd like to present two pyramids that represent different views of assessment. On the left, the traditional assessment pyramid places assessment of learning at the base. This shows the dominance of summative assessment, where measuring outcomes is seen as the main purpose of assessment. On the right, the reconfigured assessment pyramid gives more balance here. Assessment as learning is emphasized at the foundation, highlighting the importance of students reflecting on and regulating their own learning. Assessment for learning supports this process, while assessment of learning still plays a role but it's no longer the central focus. This shift reflects a modern perspective. Assessment is not only about judging learning, but also about supporting and deepening it, with the ultimate goal to achieve learner autonomy. Then this slide highlights that assessment is learning. On the left, we see a continuum. Assessment of learning, ALL, is more teacher centered, focusing on evaluating outcomes. Moving along the spectrum, Assessment for Learning, AFL, shifts towards learner involvement through feedback and guidance. Finally, Assessment as Learning, AAL, is learner-centered, where students reflect on and monitor their own progress. On the right, the image reminds us that assessment should be seen as a holistic system. Instead of being only teacher driven or learner driven, it works best when teachers and learners collaborate. In this way, assessment becomes part of the learning process itself, supporting growth for both teaching and learning. To wrap up the video, let's go over the key takeaways about assessment. First, we consider the purposes of assessment, why we assess, and what outcomes we want to see. Second, we look at the roles of the teachers, not only as evaluators but also as guides and facilitators of learning. Third, we explore the three assessment approaches: assessment of learning, for learning, as learning. Finally, we emphasize the idea of holistic assessment, where teacher and learner work together to make assessment part of the learning process itself. In short, assessment is not just about measuring learning, it is an essential tool for supporting and enhancing it. In conclusion, assessment is more than a tool for grading, it's a bridge that connects teaching and learning. By using it thoughtfully, we not only measure learning but also help students grow. Thank you for watching.